All right, everybody, this is the Indra interview. Indra, you want to go ahead and say hello?
You alright? How's it going?
All right, so what class you want me playing?
Pistol medic, please.
I cannot play medic. I have 0 XP on it, so I can't ruin that.
Oh, just like me. Never touched the class. Okay, then take what you want. I mean, guys here kind of want to say grease gun assault, but I think that's a bit mean.
Dude,
So just rifleman.
B9 put me on the shotgun, so I do not mind the grease gun. I
Okay,
can.
fine. Fuck it. Grease gun assault.
Hell yeah, okay. I'm okay with the greaser. All right, so what were you doing before Hell Let Loose?
Other than having a life, really, I was no, I moved countries. When I was fuck 23. I wasn't really much of a gamer at all. Like I had an Xbox and I played like Fallout or Skyrim or whatever, but not really playing much game wise, to be honest. Actually, I played like COD and COD 2 when I was a kid, I guess. If you want to go about that far.
Right. Let me see, I gotta turn on my SFX real quick so people don't yell at me in the comments. There we go. So, how'd you find Hell Let Loose?
So I started working at this bakery, and there was a guy there who worked front of house, and he said, "Oh, um, me and some of the other guys have just started playing this game called Hell Let Loose. Do you wanna come and play with us?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll give it a go." And I didn't have a PC at the time, and they were all on PC. So I bought it on PlayStation. I was like, right, how do we get together and do this? And then it turned out there was no crossplay. Um, so I started just playing by myself, just on console pub servers, which I'm presuming a lot of the people here are just PC players. If you think PC pubs are bad, then console are a whole other fucking level. Um, they are. I can't even put it into words. They're just miserable, I think. But like not knowing any better, it was just like, oh, this is incredible, you know. So like, not necessarily full milsim like mode, but thinking like, oh, so I feel like I'm in the war, you know.
Hmm.
I'd never played a game that was 50v50, and that I like struggled with, I guess, because you know, playing a single player game, it's very easy just to change the difficulty to something to have fun with. So I was struggling so hard and was determined to get better. And then I ended up joining like a group on console to play with people regularly and play the game more. And then we did this like it was one of the first clan v clan matches on console, and I mean it was a shit show. But then that was like my introduction to competitive play, really. So I stayed there for close to a year, I would say, just on console, and then like that that comp scene started to grow, and teams got better and better. But to me, there was still always like a skill ceiling that existed. So I looked at building a PC, and um, I moved from Iceland to Denmark, and while I was there and prices were cheaper, I started building my PC, and then yeah, here I am, I guess.
So actually, on the console thing, how did the scrims work on console? Do they have like servers that you can buy on PS4, or um, how does that work exactly?
So I think they just announced a couple of months ago that they're um, getting private servers, but it was all public servers. So you'd have to like find a dead one, or eventually someone figured out a way you could force the server or the I don't know how to put it. I'm not like a huge tech guy, I guess. you could force the game to open a new server, and then you would flood it. Ask the blueberries to leave very nicely if any managed to get in. Well, then eventually I think vote kick got introduced, so the guys could then vote kick, but I was already on PC at this point. And then you would have to burn through the maps. So you would take one map to get everyone in, and then just start flipping it until until a warfare came up. Or I mean, in the really early days, just play defensive, and teams would play that as well. But then as the comp scene grew and I think started to mirror the PC scene, it became very much like we just want to play warfare and we'll burn, because obviously fucking playing it now, but offensive's so unbalanced in a competitive setting. DC winning the summer offensive tournament 1-4 because they managed to hold the last point, and stuff like that. So it was a nightmare. Like logistically, it was a nightmare.
Wow. So like a scheduled scrim was like you didn't even really get to pick the map and the side. You just fucking rolled it.
Yeah, like it wasn't even you didn't really get to pick the map and side. You did not get to pick the map and side. So it was just complete luck of the draw. And even to this day, I think some of the guys that have been around on console since kind of the release are still happy with that. I still keep in touch with a few guys, and for them that luck almost is a big part of the appeal for them, and having to think on the fly rather than prepping for a game. But my opinion is I don't think you can really perform to the peak that you're able to if you can't prep, if you don't know what you're playing. So I disagree with them.
So there's actually scrims that you can do. It's like NRM and MNMNS or something like that. It's got the whole alphabet behind it, but basically you don't know the map until like 45 minutes before the match or something like that. They're actually pretty fun.
Yeah, that was No Rest this summer or something.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know the actual acronym. I know there's an N and an M and an R or something, and that's all I know.
I think it's a nice concept, like, to keep the game fresh. But when it's every scrim you're playing, every competition game you're playing, where it's just complete random chance, I don't think that's like conducive to an accurate representation of a team.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just, I guess, like a fun little change up or whatever. So are you still connected with your friends that originally got you to do it on PC?
Yeah, some of them, like so Heidi, who obviously you interviewed the other week, he was the guy that really got me into PC, and he recruited me to WTH and started me off there, and we still play CS a lot of the time.
Oh, so you know him in real life, actually?
Not in real life,
okay.
just online, but we still play together a lot and chat, and trying to think who else I was speaking to, like at the beginning of my PC time. I mean, I have to give a shout out to Echo, who I incessantly ping on the seasonal Discord, who is both a console and PC player.
Right.
He's kind of become one of my closest friends playing this game. And we speak all the fucking time.
Right.
But then, yeah, guys like Bloody Nine, who now is at XD, we played together, and WTH, Serpo as well. So I'd like to think there's a lot of people I still keep in touch with.
Right. So when was it that you got on PC again? What year was that / month?
So it was November 22, or 24 now. Yeah, so it's, just over 18 months ago.
Okay. How fast did you get into a comp team or community on PC? And
so I got rostered for WTH pretty early on, but obviously not in important games because honestly, I was fucking trash. I remember dropping like 40 in an SLB and thinking I was a god, you know, and then you look and you see players like Duba and Chicken and Waffles who you're playing with and they're like dropping 120, 150 above that in events. I think, oh, I've got a little bit of work to do. But I was slowly like introduced to the comp team and got rostered in seasonal games and HCA games and ECL. Mainly the latter two to begin with, and then sort of proved my worth to the team and a seasonal slot through there. But it was a long process, and it was a lot of time spent in voice calls and VOD reviews and sort of learning where I could improve. And like I'm hugely grateful still to everyone that put time in to help me get up to speed with that. And I think I mentioned their names already, so I won't keep going on about it. But hugely grateful for the foundation really that I got in WTH.
How long were you in WTH for?
Trying to think when I left. So it was around, I think, it was 2 seasonal cycles. So 8 months, I think. When I joined was just before the first one in 20. It was either the end of 22 or the beginning of 23. A bit of the dates, honestly. And then one season after that. So it would have been the middle of last year when I left. And went to DC, which for some of my WTH friends, I think was a bit of a controversial decision, but ultimately one that I'm glad I made in the long run.
Right. What caused you to do that?
The main thing was the size of the team, to be honest, because WTH is huge, and coming into this group where a lot of them had been friends for years, even though I felt very welcome, it was like there's hundreds of people here. I didn't feel like it's hard to put into words. If I say felt a bit lost in the sauce,
Right.
That's kind of how I felt. There were a couple of other little bits, but mainly it was just like wanting to be in an environment with a smaller team, where everyone felt a bit closer and more connected, but still performing at a high level. So DC was, I think, the obvious choice for those requirements, because I don't think any other team in Europe at the top level was like a small team, or they spoke German, and I cannot.
So who recruited you into DC, or like did you kind of just go looking to join them?
I went looking to join. It's quite funny actually, because in a few SLBs when WTH and DC were playing, I think everyone knows that like, there's a bit of tension between the two teams, and I definitely exacerbated that as a WTH member. Like the one that sticks out to me is like having a full blown argument with Estec in in-game chat, which I think was one of the incidents that led to them actually banning in-game comms, or like the text chat. But yeah, I just approached Mike and spoke to him, and he got me on. I'm not sure what Esprit's recruitment's like, but obviously DC had requirements for new players, like having to hit a certain KPM in events and comp games and stuff. So it was fun, but it was stressful at the same time. Knowing that I'd made this decision to leave a team where, even though I felt a bit out of place. Was like a stable place to be ultimately. And knowing that really if if DC didn't work out, that maybe I wouldn't be able to go back. That was scary, but also I think it's probably the best I've performed in the game. Like, I mean, obviously the saying is that diamonds are formed under pressure or whatever, but I was grinding the game a lot then. I was playing a bunch of events to make sure I hit that target.
What was the KPM requirement?
It was 0.91, which I think comes out to about 75, 76 kills in an event.
Right.
And I think tankers had their own. Tankers I know had to hit the infantry requirements, and then they had stuff on top. But
Right.
I'm dog shit in a tank, so luckily I didn't have to go through that.
So, do you know about like what seasonal that was that you joined? Or
So yeah, I joined DC before the last seasonal that took place, the one where we pretty infamously got knocked out on Remagen by IR. So it was what summer, no, winter 20, autumn 20, whatever it was, back end of the fucking year.
yeah,
Who needs seasons, man?
this past seasonal then?
Yeah.
The one, yeah, I gotcha.
And then yeah, we got knocked out. I took a little bit of a break then and wasn't feeling like hugely motivated to stay playing. And then I think a lot of players kind of felt that at the time. You know, it's pretty demotivating, obviously, to go out so early, especially with the boys winning the year before or the season
Right.
edition before. But then when we had a chance to make this new team, it did give me motivation to stay, because ultimately I think, like every other Howl Let Loose player, I want to win a seasonal.
Right.
So I thought, fuck it, stick around for one more, and hopefully we can do this. And then if we don't win this one, I think that it's going to be the same next time. It's going to be, well, I still haven't won one. But I think for my sanity, I hope we win this time.
So, as an outside player, the season before that, and then as a player inside DC, the next seasonal,
Yeah.
what do you think was the differentiation from going to the finals and then getting knocked out a bit earlier the next season? Do you make that observation, or?
I think that's a hard one to make. I think beyond some players leaving, like we lost. I say we, like at the time, obviously I was at DC. The DC lost players to TL, and I think that's understandable. The American guys wanting to go back to their old team and go home. Sort of return to NA for a run. Meant that DC was then down on tanks, down on some really great infantry as well. And then just general like burnout. I think you ask anyone that's won a seasonal, I think you're going to get a pretty similar answer. That if you ask them about how much time and effort that it takes to win the tournament, looking at guys like Bleicher last seasonal, Nero this seasonal, the amount of time and effort they put in is just fucking immense.
Right.
And I don't think it's unreasonable for them to want to take a step back and game for pleasure more than just like absolutely sweating, grinding, and I think that's part of a big part of it.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. That's just obviously my interpretation anyway.
So I talked to Havald about this a little bit. A lot of people say that XD is just like a reformed DC, but Havald said that there was only probably like 20 to 30 DC members in XD, if I remember correctly. Is that true? Like it is like a mixture. There's like core players, and then obviously there's a TL and DC players.
I'm not sure what the exact like percentages are, but I'd say something around like a match roster. You're probably looking at 20 DC players, 20 core players, and 10 or so TL or WTH, or we've got some Broken Arrow guys as well who came to us. So quite a mix, and it's something that like is a little bit frustrating, I think. Like people just saying, "Oh, XD is basically just DC," because we're not. We're a lot more than that, I think, and I think that kind of diminishes the huge impact that a lot of these other players have. Like, we're not mostly DC, and for me as well, having come from console and spent a lot of time watching core VODs to like learn the meta of the game, playing with these guys whose name I recognize and have been watching for like 2 years has been insane.
Right.
Feel pretty privileged, honestly. Yeah, I mean, people can call us this reformed DC or they like, but it's not true, and wish they'd give the core guys a bit more props for being the backbone of the team, really.
Right. I don't think Nero wasn't in DC, was he? I don't think
he was core, and then he went to Cerberus for last seasonal with a lot of the infamous guys who were like left over from core, and they obviously had their tournament. I think like for a lot of them, going to a more relaxed team was like something they needed, because again, like I've only been really doing this on PC for 18 months. I can't imagine doing it at that level for like 2 years, 3 years.
Right. Which he's kind of like a strat genius, right? He's like is he like your main comp lead or whatever you want to call it?
So I mean, he just stepped down from that role, I think. But yeah, up until now he has been, and like I have learned so much from him over these past months of him doing that in XD. Like I think like I've been privileged to play with WTH with DC, but coming in and playing with Nero himself, like that's I feel like no one sees the game the way he sees it.
Right.
And yeah, just been absolutely insane. Like approaching maps very differently to how I'm used to. Approaching like team setup on organization and how squads work in a different way to how I have previously. It's pretty insane.
So who's kind of taken up the mantle after him of doing that?
So I think at the moment, Ribe is kind of overseeing it. Obviously, like it wasn't just Nero doing it before. There's a tactics team that he was overseeing, and they've all stayed on. Yeah, Ribe is now kind of leading the organization of it, and I think for for him, he's maybe not like as involved with the actual decision making and the strategy. But it's been literally like 3 days, so
Right.
we will see. Glad to get off offensive mode, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Let me see here. So, kind of going off your competitive career on PC, have you had like any like big adversaries or teams that you've kind of like grown to love to play against or don't like playing against? Like, what's your little compass on that, I guess you'd say?
That is a great question. I think like I love playing against all of the top tier teams, even even greyhounds, even refuse that like play maybe a bit campy for my style. Like every bush is a fucking enemy. They are interesting games, and Spree as well. Like I think we spoke about this the other week, didn't we? I love playing against a Spree because it almost feels a bit more chess-like, and having to like predict your moves and then react accordingly, and then um, and then actually think, which is something that that some teams don't necessarily give you the option to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've got Able. Gonna get spammed with requests here, aren't I?
What gun do you want me on, by the way?
Warrior Access. So, I'm gonna be kind of. I'll give you the STG. Go assault.
Ooh,
Be free.
I've been blessed.
But then obviously there's something to be said about the smaller teams as well. Coming up and played BFTB a couple of weeks ago, and like there's something about steamrolling a comp match. Sorry, that is just fun. And even the 46 Bulls game and then the Phoenix game before, where we kind of got shafted in the openers, where admittedly maybe we weren't taking them as seriously as we could. Against Bulls, we had a whole designated AT rifle squad because we thought it would be funny.
Mm-hmm.
They were both humbling, but having to come back from a 4-1 and work our way through the map was a lot of fun.
Right.
I don't know if there's any teams that I don't enjoy playing against, because every team I think has their own style, and you have to work around that. And I think it keeps it more fresh than pubs where you just turn up and like, now I'm sat in the supply truck, I'll build 2 garrisons and I'm gonna just run around like shooting people.
Yeah.
It does get a bit stale.
So Refuse, to talk a little bit about them, I think they're one of the craziest teams from playing in scrims and then going into a tournament match against. I feel like they have like the craziest differentiation between the two styles of matches, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I mean the problem is they're French, and you see this in football, you see it in rugby. It's like, which French team is going to turn up today? Is it going to be the 2011 World Cup fucking French team that got to the final and lost to the All Blacks by 1 point, or is it going to be the 2015 World Cup French that get like shafted in the group stages? You never
Right.
know. So I think maybe that's just part of the culture of sports there. But
Right.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Refuse.
Yeah, I'll actually be interviewing Cedo and Grimmeldom this weekend together, so that'll be interesting. I get to get all the DC Raptors and all that stuff, all the French lore of the game.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. I think like as well as being kind of hot and cold, I think there's nothing the French do better than drama. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so I actually don't know much about like the European drama too much. Because obviously being in an NA team, I only hear about the NA. But do you know of any instances of like French drama, like what happens there?
I think that's a question for Sid. I'm not going to steal your interview. Um, I'll let you discuss that with him. Sorry.
Right. So in your time on PC, has there been like what do you think about like the direction the game's kind of been going in?
I mean, I think I share view that a lot of players do, which is that it is um, it is declining. Um, I think everyone looks at matter and their time like developing the game as this infallible like period where they got all the decisions right, and I don't think that was true. But I think Team 17 are particularly toned to how the game works, how the competitive players especially look to it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that ultimately it's a bad thing for the game. And I'm not just saying that like, oh, I'm a comp player myself. My opinion matters more than this level 30 who just plays pubs, because that's not it. But I also know that me and the people I play with are way better suited to finding out how to exploit the game, what what the meta actually is, and what if I can get shot, I can't get Chris. Um, and how to actually improve it on that level. Where Team 17, I mean, you look at the dev like live streams they do, and they're like level 10. And I think just because they've made the game and put things in it doesn't mean they have um, the best view of how it actually works in practice. So there's a lot of things I would change with how the game works, and I think that's also why people end up kind of burned out with it.
Right. So
I
like,
think like
oh, sorry,
sorry,
go
how
ahead.
long? Well, I think for me one of the biggest ones is artillery. I know everyone hates being on the receiving end of it, but I think there's a better way to balance it within the game, both in a public match setting, but also in a competitive setting. Like I'm very against the one arty gun rule, um, but I also think just the way that it's built is not optimal. There's a lot of talk of making it a commander ability um, or just removing it and replacing it with mortars or whatever, which I don't necessarily think is the way to go about it either. I think mortars, you'll just have the same thing, except the arty's in a different place. So I'm not
Right.
sure what the perfect solution is. I just know that I would like to see it changed to something that still can have like a big impact on the game, like the three arty gun meta did. But it's also interesting, where maybe you do have to be more careful with your munitions, or you have to think about optimize or utilizing it at the right time, and rather than just being able to shoot it constantly. The 1RT guns I think is so stale. It's something we saw against Refuse, like, and you're interviewing Ramalden later in the week. It just felt like he picked one spot, fired there all game, and we just couldn't do anything. And I think that's wrong as well.
Right. So a lot of people kind of talk about the game dying like pretty soon or early, and I feel like I've been saying that for a long time. Do you think that the game actually still has like a pretty decent life expectancy left?
That's, I think, hard to say. I think the player base is still pretty consistent. Like I think it hasn't really dropped off that much. But I think for long-term players, the appeal is diminishing.
Right.
Like, there's nothing that keeps it fresh. There's nothing that makes it like an attractive game to come back to. Really. So yeah, I don't know if it's gonna die. I think we'll just see this like steady decline as it withers out.
Right.
I think the main thing is the competitive scene and that and the longevity there.
So what's been like your favorite thing about Hell Let Loose, like in the on the PC side of things?
Definitely, like, improving as a player, like, is very rewarding, and it's something that like has carried over. I've started playing a lot of CS and sort of very, very basic shooting mechanics that you learn playing Hell Let Loose has helped me there, and but beyond that, it's mainly just the people. The guys that I've played with for the last 18 months, all inclusive, and even back in console as well. But like meeting these people that are just as like nerdy about this shit as I am, and also working together to achieve the same goals I want to achieve is hugely rewarding. Those relationships are a big part of what's kept me coming back. It would be nice to win a seasonal, but if there was no team to keep me invested, it would be very hard to build the motivation to do that.
Right. So like outside of your community, has there been other communities that you've kind of really gotten along with or people?
At various times, I would say. Like, I think, I'm a big fan of Refuse and speak to guys that are there pretty frequently. Like I said, I still keep in touch with WTH players. Even guys like 82AD and whatever have been pretty supportive to me in the past, and felt like I had friends there. The biggest thing for me in that regard was the international 18s tournament. I don't know if you played in that, but because it was like the 18s World Cup, and bringing together, like, on the GB team we had players from WTH, from DC, from Circle, from 82AD, from fucking like Legion X, from just all over the place. And that was super fun getting to know these people from other teams, and a lot of them I've kept in contact with since. And during my bunker incident, guys like Dan from 82AD were really really supportive, and helped me make sure I had a place to still play the game. got Tigers from the line who did the same, and I'm really grateful for those guys. I think who else? GBI. Even though I gotta admit, I fucking love winding them up. I think are good people, and Crash from GBI I speak to super regularly. Fucking Gcock and those guys, Terry and Murray as well. I speak to regularly, and mainly because they're telling me off the posting in their general chat, but still, I do feel that the greater sort of competitive community has a really great selection of people in it, honestly.
Right. So could you actually go into some detail about your bunkering, if you don't mind? Like what brought that to be?
Stream snipe Raspora. He got pissy. I got bunkered. That's kind of it. So it was like I'd just been made DC member, I think. And Raspora was streaming on Twitch, and he didn't have an overlay or a delay on, and I thought, do you know what would be really funny? If I go and stream snipe him. So I made a little voice channel and was like, let's go and go and do something funny. And I did, and got caught. And then the next thing I know, I'm in the bunker. My take on it is, as someone that casts Hell Let Loose and who streams their gameplay, both in pubs and comp games, if you don't have a delay or an overlay, someone's going to find you. Maybe they're not going to be stupid and obtuse about it and as open as I was, but someone's going to do it. And like, I've been on the receiving end, and that I feel like that's kind of on me for not wanting to really set up a delay or map overlay. But I don't know. I personally don't see the harm on it of it if it's not like a comp game. Like, I think if you're gonna sit and have the stream up on a comp game, you're a bit of a loser. But a pub game, it's just a bit funny.
Right.
And if I'm streaming, please come and stream snipe me. It's a laugh. So I appreciate, however, that people have different opinions to me, and that see it as a crime against humanity, and that if I stream snipe, then maybe I shouldn't be allowed to play the game, which is what happened. Ultimately, I've learned my lesson. Like I said, I'm really grateful to a lot of people for giving me a place to still play the game and kind of clear my name on it and keep my nose clean in that regard. So yeah, I think it was a year ago now, and
right.
Hopefully some bygones are bygone. You can't spawn in here.
I did not see where that guy was. The one that's shooting at the OP. He's been doing it for a minute.
They've got an OP just opposite ours. Can't get away to move this one. Oh. Yeah, I shouldn't have been a retard and done it in the first place, but ultimately, I've learned from my mistakes.
So has there been any like people or communities that you've grown to dislike in your time playing? If you're willing to share that, obviously.
Well, I think I've made my opinions clear. I want to say that there's no one I can think of really that I dislike on a personal level. There's people who like have irritated me through interactions or whatever, but I don't dislike people because it's just a game. It doesn't matter,
Right.
But I mean, I have to say, your team obviously is Spree. I have struggled with why is our OP stayed and we've just lost? Is this a new bug? What's that about?
Wait, you placed a new OP and the old one stayed?
No. I didn't place a new OP.
Oh, okay.
It's still the old one. That's scuffed. Weird. But yeah, I mean, a Spree for me, like, have been always a bit of a pain to deal with. You know, one of my first ever comp games was against the Spree, and like being asked if we could change the time of the match, so because half the team was going to church or something on a Sunday night was I know a bit weird, and then I don't really have much time for people that like want to deliberately break rules and stuff, because ultimately in Hell at Loose comp the only thing that matters is the rules. Like we have to abide to this rule set, because otherwise it is totally meaningless, and you can argue that it is anyway, because you know no one's making money off it, no one's you know winning anything other than bragging rights. So for me, you know, these teams that deliberately break the rules repeatedly, it just bothers me. But you know, other than that, again, there's no one. I mean, no one I particularly dislike.
Right. I placed a satchel on that garrison, but I think a teammate's going to dismantle it, so that sucks. I'll probably just get a bunch of team kills.
It's one of the perks of playing pubs.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Don't get kicked, eh?
So do you have any like opinions on like the state of the current like a comp scene, like as far as like the teams go and everything?
I think it's a shame to see like fewer and fewer teams taking part in comp. Like, I understand it. I think it comes back to what I was talking about earlier with the state of the game and just general burnout as well. Like it is tiring. But you know, to go from 36 teams to I can't remember how many we had last time, and now it's down to 21 in seasonal is objectively like sad for the game. And I think a lot of players have like moved up, I guess, from smaller teams to bigger ones, or in like DC and Core or Infamous, technically, you know, disbanded, and the players that still wanted to play came together. Which I think is sad for the scene. You know, I think it's interesting to play lots of different teams, and I love the different challenges from every game, and having a smaller and smaller pool of teams to choose from, to play like top level games. Right, this OP is fucking scuffed. I'm gonna stop spoiling that. You know, it is not ideal. I think as well, and this is something that I've been talking about a lot recently in seasonal, is that the organization of tournaments has also like taken a noticeable decline in quality, which makes them not as attractive to play. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's all stuff that can be fixed.
Right.
But I understand like Heidi doing seasonal for 4 years. I think he's earned, you know, the opportunity to step away and do something he finds more rewarding and more fun, with his spare time. And you know, I appreciate the current augurs coming in and taking over to make sure there are tournaments. But I do certainly think there's improvements that could be made to make it a more attractive place to to play.
So what's kind of been like the problems, would you say? Like what would you do to improve like seasonal?
For me, seasonal, the biggest problem is the format being fair to teams. Like we just saw GBI getting put straight into the losers bracket on a wheel spin, and I think
Right.
that's like fundamentally something that should never have the possibility of even happening. I think the foundation of the tournament should be that it's fair to all teams competing, and that it doesn't matter if it's this hobby tournament on Hell Let Loose or the fucking FIFA World Cup. It's fundamentally it cannot give any team an advantage or a disadvantage at any point.
Right.
That's not to say it can't reward teams. So for me, like this seasonal format with the round robin group, you don't get anything for winning your group. You don't get anything for performing other than you move on to the next stage because there's no seeding. It's trying to find how to put it. It's just like I don't know. Once you've qualified, you can kind of sit back and coast if you want to. Obviously, I think teams in our group, Refuse especially, definitely didn't do that. GBI, of course, not as well. Because I think coming in and being the first team to beat XD was probably a pretty big motivator, and I bet Refuse were fucking stoked. But ultimately, in the tournament, it's meaningless. So I would have liked to have seen something that rewarded whoever came top in the group, rather than punishing those sort of middle teams. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about, I would say.
Right. I think GBI, what was their record in the group stage? Was it 2-2 or something like that, or 3-1?
No, it was 4-1. So it was a 3-way tie. Yeah. So a 3-way tie between GBI, Refuse, and XD, which is how the wheel spin happened.
Okay.
But I don't think that the format should have even been in place to allow that situation to occur.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of fucked.
Yeah, I've been having a think about how I would do it differently, and I think for me, like part of what I've been speaking to Starlord, I've been speaking to Kendrick and Abu, and these guys in a ticket, and part of the feedback they had was teams wanted more games, which I completely understand, but I think it's forced them into this format that is less than optimal. So, I would have liked to have seen maybe less games, but a more robust system for qualifying, maybe more punishing to teams that don't perform. The fact that there's a chance that teams that win one but lose everything else could get through is fine. But I think when it's then condition based on other teams losing, isn't necessarily ideal. If GBI had won, I can't remember if Phoenix had beaten GBI, sorry, then XD would have been out. And I think the fact that going into that last week, there's a sort of 4-way tie for 3 spots, in a way that would then seriously disadvantage one team is a problem. I think I'm not a fan of like Swiss format tournaments, but double, triple eliminations or stuff like that, I think is it gives more of a sense of a journey, whilst rewarding top teams, giving middle teams the chance to qualify, and then punishing lesser teams. And I think that's very important in a tournament that people look to as the pinnacle of like the scene.
Yeah.
I think also the fact there was 21 teams is slightly problematic. Tournaments work best obviously on like base 8 numbers, so 8, 16, 32 teams. So, but then after that they work better on even numbers than odd. So I would have, maybe it sounds a bit harsh, but I wouldn't have accepted the 21st team. So that there was a cleaner format that's better for everyone. And then the group stage, I'm still trying to put my head around. It is something. I'm in like a full-on conga line in the trench. Jeez. Every one of the teams are there. Oh, they're all crouching as well. I can't run past them.
A minors and majors bracket. You qualify for the minors and major bracket instead, and then they have like their own separate. I don't know.
I think for me that brings its own problems as well. So you've got obviously HCA that does that. But I think for some teams they'd maybe rather win it all in the minors than have a run through the majors. And it's something like we've seen in ECL as well. Teams opting not to be promoted, and I think that's fine if that's what they want to do, and those tournaments are there for them. But you have to have something where everyone starts off evenly,
Right.
and one winner is determined. So, traditionally that's been seasonal. If you went minors and majors on seasonal, then I think it would lose a lot of the charm. You wouldn't see like the run DC had when they played core in the final, where they started like in the very very bottom Swiss bracket and had to fight their way all the way through the game, all the way through the tournament. Sorry, to get to the final. And those stories are obviously great.
Right.
So yeah, I think some tournaments can have it, but there needs to be at least one that doesn't, because otherwise there's no way really of determining strength against other teams.
These matches have been terrible, by the way.
Yeah, very very bad.
So, is there anything that I may have missed about either the community or the game or anything that you'd like to mention? Or any shout outs to any players or anything like that?
I mean, I feel like I've touched on a lot of what I could talk about in that regard. I think I've name dropped quite a lot through this. Who have I missed? I mean, I said that I had an argument with S-Tech, but I mean, I think he's become like a genuinely good friend, and even though we started off scrapping in SLB, so like the guys I play with at XD, obviously there's fucking 60 names there. I'm not gonna list them all out, but I'm grateful to each and every one of them for keeping me invested in this game. Then yeah, on going back, I guess to console, Echo I've already mentioned, Fender, fucking Grave Siren. These guys, I hope to listen to this. Listen to me chat shit for an hour, but they've been huge support for me, both in the game and outside of it, and Rum and Realist as well, from all the way down in Australia, who have grown close to through this game, and keep me coming back to it. there's anyone I've missed, I'm really sorry. But I know I know I say a lot of trolly things and wind people up, but I do have a lot of respect and honestly just fucking love for a lot of people that I've met through this game. And yeah, I hope that they know that. Um, but yeah, I can't think of anything else I have to add, honestly. This game's given me like a lot of genuinely good memories, and even if it does die, even if I hopefully win this season or retire, it is a time that I know I can look back on fondly overall.
Right. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, dude, and telling your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Still going to ping you saying when's my interview because I feel like it's I'm too far in now. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, man.